Hi, this is Andrew again. I serve as a spokesperson for Nehemiah Reset. Today I want to talk to you about a recent video produced by 6 Democratic lawmakers. In November 2025, a political firestorm erupted not from a policy debate or a foreign crisis, but from a 90-second video posted to the X account of Senator Slotkin. The video featured 6 Democratic lawmakers, each with a decorated career in the U.S. military or intelligence community, delivering a stark and unprecedented message directly to active duty members of the armed forces and intelligence personnel. Their plea was not a simple expression of dissent. It was a calculated, coordinated appeal to the military to question and potentially resist the orders of their commander-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. Cloaked in the language of constitutional duty, their actions represent a profound and potentially treasonous assault on the bedrock principle of American democracy, civilian control of the military. This video will provide a detailed examination of the 6 lawmakers, dissect the dangerous nature of their speech under the lens of United States Code Title 18, Section 2387, explore the severe legal repercussions they face, and analyze the cynical, anti-constitutional goals that motivated their actions. So, who are these 6 lawmakers, and what is their profile in subversion? The power and peril of the video lie in the identities of its participants. These are not backbenchers or fringe activists. They were sitting members of Congress who traded on their service records to lend an air of patriotic authority to an act that was, at its core, a betrayal of the very institutions they once swore to protect. 1. Senator Slotkin, Democrat, Michigan. The architect and public face of the video, Slotkin is a former CIA analyst who served multiple tours in Iraq alongside the military. She later served as a senior director for the National Security Council and as acting assistant secretary of defense for international security affairs. Representing Michigan, a key swing state, her role gave the entire enterprise the imprimatur of the U.S. Senate. In the video, she set the tone, claiming to speak to service members under enormous stress and pressure and urging them to stand up for our laws and our Constitution. This was a deliberate invocation of her past to legitimize the present act of political subversion. 2. Senator Mark Kelly, Democrat, Arizona, a former U.S. Navy captain and decorated combat pilot. Kelly is also a celebrated NASA astronaut. His presence was designed to be the moral compass of the group, appealing to a sense of honor and duty. Representing Arizona, another crucial state, his participation signaled that this was a mainstream Democratic effort. In the video, he joined others in stating, "You must refuse illegal orders." For a former officer to publicly urge active duty personnel to refuse orders without providing any specific, context-dependent examples of illegality is to actively corrode the discipline of the force he once led. 3. Representative Jason Crow, Democrat, Colorado, a former Army Ranger who served in the elite 75th Ranger Regiment with multiple combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Crow brought a gritty, boots-on-the-ground credibility. Representing Colorado, a state with a significant military presence, his appeal was to the warrior ethos. In the video, he and others claimed that threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home. This vague but inflammatory statement was designed to paint the sitting administration as a domestic enemy on par with foreign adversaries, a dangerous narrative for any soldier to internalize. 4. Representative Chrissy Houlihan, Democrat, Pennsylvania, a former U.S. Air Force officer. Houlihan served for 3 years as a strategic planner and later worked in the private sector. Her inclusion broadened the appeal beyond the combat arms community to the wider Air Force and technical branches. Representing Pennsylvania, another swing state, she was part of the effort to geographically and demographically target the message. 5. Representative Chris DeLuzio, Democrat, Pennsylvania, a former Navy officer. DeLuzio served as a surface warfare officer. His background, alongside Kelly's, reinforced the naval perspective in the video. Also representing Pennsylvania, his presence further solidified the message's focus on a critical electoral state. He joined in the collective refrain, "You must refuse illegal orders." 6. Representative Maggie Goodlander, Democrat, New Hampshire, a former naval intelligence officer. Goodlander's background was crucial for the video's appeal to the intelligence community. She is also married to Jake Sullivan, the former national security advisor under President Biden, linking her directly to the previous administration's foreign policy apparatus. Representing New Hampshire, she helped target the message to the often overlooked intelligence professionals. In the video, she reminded service members, "Like us, you all swore an oath to protect and defend this Constitution," twisting a sacred vow into a tool for political insubordination. So, what was the treasonous nature of their speech? The lawmakers' actions were not a benign reminder of military ethics. They were a direct violation of the spirit and letter of federal law. The most fitting statute is 18 U.S. Code Section 2387, Activities Affecting Armed Forces During War. While the U.S. is not in a formally declared war, the statute is often interpreted to apply during periods of national emergency, armed conflict, or when a military is actively engaged in significant operations, such as the deployments ordered by the Trump administration at the time. Let's break down the statute and apply it to the lawmakers' actions. 18 U.S.C. Section 2387, whoever, with intent to interfere with, impair, or influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the armed forces of the United States. 1. Advises, counsels, urges, or in any manner causes or attempt to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty by any member of the armed forces. The key elements are intent, the target audience, and the nature of the speech. 1. Intent to interfere, impair, or influence. The lawmakers' intent is unmistakable. They did not release a video criticizing a specific policy. They released a video explicitly aimed at the military, urging them to adopt a mindset of defiance. Their stated goal was to influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of service members by making them question the legitimacy of their commander-in-chief. The very act of telling soldiers that the threats to our Constitution are coming from right here at home is a direct attempt to interfere with the established order and impair the trust that is essential for a functioning chain of commands. 2. The target audience. The video was not for the general public. It was explicitly and repeatedly addressed to members of the military and the intelligence community. This was direct communication, bypassing civilian leadership and speaking to the instruments of state power themselves. This is precisely the conduct Section 2387 was designed to prohibit. 3. The nature of speech. The lawmakers' language directly violates the statute. They did not merely discuss the theoretical concept of illegal orders. They actively urged refusal. The line, "You must refuse illegal orders," is not a statement of law. It is a command. It is a clear attempt to cause insubordination or refusal of duty. Crucially, they provided no specific, concrete examples of illegal orders. They spoke in vague, ominous terms about the administration pitting our uniformed military against American citizens, a reference to the deployment of the National Guard to quell riots, a power that has been used by presidents of both parties and is subject to congressional and judicial review. By failing to provide context, they transformed a narrow legal principle into a broad license for dissent. A soldier hearing this message is not being educated. They are encouraged to prejudge the legality of orders based on the political proclivities of these 6 lawmakers, effectively inserting them as a new, unconstitutional layer in the chain of command. If this is found to be treasonous, what is the punishment for this type of conduct? The punishment for violating Section 2387 is severe and reflects the seriousness with which the nation treats such actions. The statute states that anyone found guilty shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both. A 10-year federal prison sentence is the baseline. However, the lawmakers' actions could also trigger other, even more serious, charges. 18 U.S.C. Section 2381, Treason. While the legal definition of treason is narrow, levying war against the United States or adhering to its enemies, President Trump himself framed their actions in these stark terms. He accused them of seditious behavior, punishable by death. While an actual charge of treason and the death penalty are highly unlikely in a legal sense, the president's rhetoric accurately captures the gravity of what they attempted. The content of the video was, in its essence, a direct challenge to the established military chain of command and the principle of civilian control over the armed forces. The lawmakers spoke somberly, acknowledging the enormous stress and pressure service members were under. They then asserted, "This administration is pitting our uniformed military and intelligence community professionals against American citizens." This was a grave and unsubstantiated accusation, framing the administration's policies as an attack on the American people by their own military. The core of their message, however, was the most incendiary part. The lawmakers stated, "Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home." They then delivered the pivotal lines. "You can refuse illegal orders. You must refuse illegal orders." This was not a nuanced discussion of the Nuremberg principles or the lawful limits of military obedience. It was a blanket, open-ended directive issued by elected officials to active duty personnel, encouraging them to make their own determinations about the legality of orders from their commander-in-chief. Crucially, the lawmakers failed to specify a single illegal order. They did not cite a specific policy, directive, or action by the Trump administration that they believed to be unconstitutional. This ambiguity was not an oversight. It was a feature of their strategy. By not naming an order, they invited service members to interpret any order they personally disliked, whether it related to border security, domestic deployments, or any other contentious policy, as potentially illegal and therefore disobeyable. As Republican Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri sharply criticized, "At the end of the day, they're mad the American people chose Trump, and now they're calling on the military and intelligence community to intervene." Sounds a little subversive to democracy. This video caused a severe backlash from the president. The response from President Donald Trump was swift, severe, and characteristically unfiltered. On Thursday, November 20th, 2 days after the video's release, the president took to his Truth Social platform and unleashed a barrage of posts condemning the lawmakers. He labeled the video really bad and dangerous to our country and declared the lawmakers' actions seditious behavior from traitors. He called for their immediate arrest and trial, posting "Lock them up." Based upon my review of the situation, I believe the lawmakers' true goal and objective is to challenge what they perceived as unconstitutional actions by the Trump administration. Their objective was not simply a civic education lesson, but a direct political intervention aimed at protecting what they saw as the rule of law and the proper role of the U.S. military. Their message was that service members have an obligation to refuse illegal orders and uphold their oath to the Constitution, not to any single leader. The video was released amid specific concerns that the Trump administration was attempting to deploy National Guard troops into U.S. cities and use the military against American citizens, which the lawmakers argued was an attempt to pit the military against the civilian population. By invoking their own military and intelligence backgrounds, they sought to lend credibility and moral authority to their message, framing it as a duty-bound defense of the nation's founding principles against internal threats. This was indeed a calculated political maneuver designed to achieve several outcomes. 1. Erode administrative authority. The strategy was to undermine the Trump administration's authority by publicly questioning the legality of its potential orders. By encouraging military and intelligence personnel to defy orders they deemed illegal, the lawmakers aimed to create a climate of doubt and noncompliance, effectively eroding the administration's ability to execute its agenda from within. 2. Frame the narrative. The lawmakers preemptively framed the debate around the Constitution and the rule of law. They positioned themselves as defenders of the Constitution while casting the administration as a potential threat to it. This was designed to win public and institutional support by appealing to a higher, nonpartisan ideal. 3. Force a confrontation. The video was a direct challenge that was almost certain to provoke a strong reaction from President Trump. His predictable, aggressive response would then allow the lawmakers to portray him as unstable, authoritarian, and a threat to democratic norms, thereby validating their initial warning. The lawmakers' strategy in response to the intense pushback from President Trump, who accused them of sedition and suggested it was punishable by death, was multifaceted and carefully executed. 1. Refuse to back down. Immediately after Trump's attacks, the 6 lawmakers issued a joint statement vowing they will not be intimidated and would not be deterred from their sacred obligation to the Constitution. They doubled down on their original position, refusing to apologize or retract their message. 2. Reframe the debate. They reframed the issue not as an attack on the presidency, but as a defense of the law itself. Their key line of argument was, "What's most telling is that the president considers it punishable by death for us to restate the law." This shifted the focus from their actions to his reaction, painting him as an enemy of legal principle. 3. Mobilize broad condemnation. The lawmakers and their party leadership worked to generate widespread condemnation of Trump's rhetoric. They called on every American to unite and condemn the president's calls for our murder and political violence. This was an attempt to isolate the president and define his response as beyond the pale of acceptable political discourse. 4. Highlight the threat and assume the mantle of victim. Senator Slotkin highlighted the threats she received, noting she was provided with security by Capitol Police. This served to substantiate their claims about the dangerous nature of Trump's rhetoric and cast them as principled public servants risking their personal safety for the country. 5. Leverage institutional allies. They received robust support from Democratic leadership, with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries calling Trump's rhetoric disgusting and dangerous, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer stating that Trump has made political violence a feature of his politics. This unified front demonstrated that their position was not a fringe act, but a coordinated party stance. The broader Democratic strategy, as evidenced by this incident and Slotkin's other actions, appears to be a systematic campaign to obstruct and delegitimize the Trump administration's agenda through legislative and public pressure tactics. This includes 1. Legislative roadblocks, backing bills to block National Guard deployments, limit the authority of immigration agents, and prevent the use of military force in specific scenarios, such as against Venezuela. 2. Systematic opposition, consistently voting against the president's nominees and appointments to key positions, thereby hindering his ability to staff his administration and implement his policies. 3. Public messaging campaigns, using high-profile public actions, like the video, to frame the administration as a threat to democratic norms and the Constitution, thereby shaping public opinion and media coverage. The subsequent backpedal was not a retreat by the lawmakers, but a necessary strategic pivot to a defensive posture that allowed them to absorb the president's attack and use it as evidence to support their original thesis. By refusing to be intimidated and attempting to cast Trump's response as an unhinged attack on the rule of law, they may have achieved their objective of highlighting the administration's authoritarian tendencies while galvanizing their own base and political allies. To counter the political fallout from the November 2025 Slotkin video, the Trump administration must execute a multi-pronged strategy that reframes the narrative, undermines the credibility of their opponents, and energizes their base. The immediate goal is to shift the public perception from a story about Trump's supposed authoritarianism to one about democratic subversion of the military and respect for the rule of law. First, the administration should lean into the narrative of civilian control of the military and the importance of a lawful chain of command. They can argue that the video, featuring officers speaking to troops about disobeying orders, was a dangerous and unprecedented attempt by the outgoing Democratic administration to politicize the armed forces and sow doubt in the next commander-in-chief. Trump's initial authoritative response can be recontextualized not as a threat, but as the firm and necessary rebuke of a commander-in-chief protecting the integrity of the military from political interference. The messaging should be clear. President Trump was not threatening the military. He was defending it from being used as a political pawn by the Democrats. Second, proactive media and legal offensive are crucial. The administration should dispatch trusted surrogates, not just Trump himself, to all major networks and talk shows to aggressively push this counter-narrative. They should highlight the distinguished careers of the officers in the video while questioning the judgment and motives of the political figures like Slotkin, who orchestrated it. Simultaneously, the Department of Defense, under new Trump-appointed leadership, should initiate a formal review into the circumstances surrounding the video's production and distribution. This investigation would keep the story in news, but on terms favorable to the Republicans, focusing on the impropriety of the Democrats' actions rather than Trump's reaction. The constant drip of information from such an inquiry would keep Democrats on the defensive. Finally, the Trump team must turn this into a long-term political asset by weaponizing it against the Democratic Party. They can frame the incident as proof that Democrats do not trust the American people's choice and will resort to extraordinary measures to undermine a duly elected president. This narrative should be woven into fundraising appeals, campaign rallies, and digital ads, painting the Democrats as desperate and willing to compromise national security for political gain. By consistently framing the event as the Slotkin subversion or the Democratic coup attempt, they can create a powerful and memorable negative association that will stick with voters, ultimately transforming a moment of perceived weakness into a display of strength and a defining attack line against their opponents for the next 2 years. I hope this helps you better understand how this event has impacted both the left and the right. To learn more about this event and others, visit our website at nehemiahreset.com and our rumble.com video account. We post videos in both accounts each week. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Are you looking for a limitless supply of insightful reads to expand your mind and transform your life? Look no further than Nehemiah Reset's ebook library, where knowledge meets inspiration at nehemiahreset.org/ebook. Go there today to discover a wealth of valuable resources to help you on your personal and professional journey to build a biblical worldview. Learn more about the Bible and how culture is impacting your worldview. Again, that the ebook library is located at nehemiahreset.org/ebook. Hope to see you soon. My name is Mark. I'm one of the spokespersons for Nehemiah Reset. The prior video was sponsored by Nehemiah Reset, a 501c3. Our mission is to assist Christians in developing a biblical worldview as it pertains to relevant cultural and biblical issues. We seek to inform Christ's followers, equip them, and mobilize them into action to vote for their biblical values and to actively engage in our culture. We are also committed to help Christians and non-believers to develop a better biblical view. Nehemiah Reset produces videos and ebooks to assist members of the church in developing a biblical worldview when it comes to cultural issues. We produce videos on key topics like public school indoctrination, the woke agenda, sex education, equity and inclusion, climate change, immigration, religious freedom, and much, much more. To learn more about Nehemiah Reset or to watch our latest videos, go to our website at nehemiahreset.org or our rumble.com channel. We produce 2 to 3 videos every week. To get a weekly list of our latest videos, sign up for our weekly newsletter by going to nehemiahreset.org/email and subscribe. You can support our website by liking our videos, subscribing to our channels, or helping us reach more people through tax-exempt donations. Thanks for your help in growing God's kingdom and bringing more people to Christ. Thank you for your support and help. Come back again soon. Have a great day.